The hallway was buzzing with the usual chatter of students as they rushed to their next class, but for Maya the noise felt muffled, like she was in a different world. Her black hoodie was pulled up over her head, her eyes fixed on the floor, as she navigated the crowded corridor. It wasn't that she was shy, she just preferred to keep to herself. The world didn't seem to understand her, and honestly she didn't care much for it either, but today something felt different. As Maya neared her locker, she felt a shove from behind, followed by a loud, mocking laugh. "Hey, look who it is. The daughter of the great Rock himself." It was Jason. He'd been making fun of her for weeks now, and today it seemed like he was determined to escalate things. Jason was the kind of guy who thrived on being the center of attention. He wasn't the brightest, but he was the loudest. His jokes were always at someone else's expense, and right now, Maya was his favorite target. "Seriously, do you think you're better than us just because your dad is famous?" Jason sneered. His friends laughing behind him. Maya didn't react. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. Her father might have been the most famous man on the planet, but that didn't mean she had to prove anything to anyone. Yet the constant whispers, the stares, the jokes, it was starting to wear on her. "Hey, I'm talking to you." Jason grabbed, her arm pulling her back towards him with a rough tug. Maya's heart raced, but she kept her head down, staying silent. Her mother always told her to pick her battles, to let things go, but today, something inside her stirred. She had never been one to back down from anything in her life, even if that meant standing up to a bully. Jason didn't like being ignored. "What's the matter, princess? Too good to talk to us? Is that what being the Rock's daughter does to you?" he taunted, his voice growing louder. A small crowd had started to gather, some recording on their phones, others watching eagerly to see if anything would happen. Maya felt her throat tighten, but she refused to let him see her struggle. She wasn't going to give him the pleasure of seeing her break, but then Jason shoved her. Hard. The next thing Maya knew, she was crashing to the ground. Her books scattered across the floor as a few students gasped and others chuckled. Maya pushed herself up, her palms scraping against the cold tile. She could hear Jason's mocking voice, but it felt distant, like she was in a bubble, just trying to catch her breath. "Enough, Jason," someone yelled from the crowd. Maya didn't know who said it, but it didn't matter. She looked up to see Jason grinning, his friends still laughing. He had done what he wanted, humiliated her in front of everyone. For a split second, Maya would have stayed down. She would have let it slide just like she always did. But today felt different. With a quick breath, Maya stood up. She wiped the dust from her clothes, her hands still shaking, but she wasn't going to let him see that. She squared her shoulders, lifting her head high. "You think this is funny?" she asked, her voice surprisingly steady, though her insides were churning. "Picking on someone just because they're different. What's your problem, Jason?" Jason's grin faltered for a moment, and the crowd grew quiet. They weren't used to Maya talking back. It was almost as if they expected her to stay silent forever, to always be the quiet girl, the girl who didn't fight back. Jason, now looking slightly uncomfortable, scoffed. "What? You think you're better than me? Just because your dad's some big shot? Get over yourself." The anger boiled up inside her, but Maya stayed calm. She wasn't going to let him win. "You don't know anything about me," she said, voice low but firm. "And you sure as hell don't know anything about my dad, but that doesn't give you the right to treat me like this." Jason stared at her for a moment, seemingly taken aback by her words. The crowd was still watching, their eyes shifting, from Maya to Jason, waiting for the next move. Then Jason's expression darkened. "Whatever," he muttered, shoving past her and disappearing into the crowd, leaving Maya standing there, heart racing. She could feel the weight of the stares still on her. They were probably all wondering what would happen next. If she'd run to her father, if she'd cry, if she'd be the same Maya they'd always known. But Maya wasn't going to be defined by what people expected of her. She wasn't her father's shadow. She was her own person. And maybe, just maybe, today was the day she'd finally stop letting the world walk all over her. Did you ever have to stand up to a bully? How did you handle it? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to see what happens next in Maya's journey. Maya sat in the quiet of her room, the door locked behind her, her mind swirling with everything that had just happened. She could still hear the echoes of Jason's laughter in her ears, but this time it didn't sting as much. She wasn't sure if it was because she had stood up for herself, or if it was because she was just so tired of pretending, tired of letting people push her around. Her father, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, was one of the most famous men on the planet. His name alone could make the whole world stop and stare, but Maya, she didn't care about any of that. Growing up as his daughter wasn't as glamorous as people might imagine. Sure, there were perks, private jets, red carpets, world-class vacations, but the fame also meant she was constantly under a microscope. People expected her to be perfect, to live up to an image that had nothing to do with who she was. As a kid, Maya didn't mind so much. She adored her father. He was kind, generous, and above all, he made her feel like she could do anything. But as she grew older and entered high school, the weight of his fame became harder to carry. Her classmates weren't shy about making her the center of attention, but not for the right reasons. They didn't care about who she was, only who her father was. They would point to her in the hallway and whisper, "That's the Rock's daughter," as though that was the only thing that defined her. It was especially difficult at school. Maya wasn't popular like her father's public persona suggested. She wasn't outgoing, and she wasn't interested in attending every party or being friends with every person who thought they could ride the coattails of her father's fame. Her mother, Layla, understood. Maya's mom was a powerhouse in her own right, an accomplished businesswoman who had worked hard to build a successful career. She wasn't intimidated by fame, and she never treated Maya like she was anything other than her daughter. Still, even with the love and support from Layla, the feeling of always being watched weighed heavily on Maya. Her father would tell her over and over that she didn't need to prove anything to anyone, but it didn't change the fact that every time she walked into school, every time she sat in the lunchroom, she could feel the eyes on her. People would talk about her, whether she was there or not, and it always made her feel like she was living in a cage made of expectations. But Maya had learned how to block most of it out. At least, she tried to. She learned how to smile when she didn't feel like smiling, to nod when she didn't feel like engaging. She had perfected the art of keeping her head down and avoiding confrontation. But deep inside, a part of her was dying to be seen for who she truly was. A part of her was desperate for someone to notice the girl behind the famous last name. There were days when she couldn't stand it, the constant comparisons, the whispers, the feeling that she was nothing more than an accessory to her father's fame. She just wanted to be Maya, the girl who liked to read, the girl who ran track in the spring, the girl who dreamed of studying marine biology. But here she was, stuck in this world where everyone else's version of who she should be mattered, more than who she actually was. The incident in the hallway that morning, with Jason shoving her to the ground and humiliating her in front of everyone, had stirred something in Maya. It wasn't the first time she'd been bullied. It wasn't even the worst time. But something about it felt different. She didn't want to be a passive victim anymore. She was tired of letting other people define her. Her phone buzzed on the bed next to her, snapping her out of her thoughts. It was a text from her best friend, Sarah. "Sarah, you okay? I saw what happened. You were amazing today. Jason didn't know who he was messing with." Maya stared at the screen for a moment. She could feel a small smile tug at the corner of her lips. Sarah was always there for her, and in a world where people only saw Maya as the Rock's daughter, Sarah was one of the few people who saw her for who she truly was. "Maya." "Thanks, Sarah. I'm just exhausted. I didn't want to cause a scene, but I couldn't stay silent anymore." "Sarah, you're stronger than you realize. Don't let him get to you. You know who you are, and that's all that matters." Maya let out a sigh, leaning back against her pillow. She had always been the type to bottle up her feelings, to push them aside and pretend they didn't hurt. But maybe Sarah was right. Maybe it was time to stop pretending. Maybe it was time to stop letting the world tell her who she should be. Her phone buzzed again, and this time it was a text from her mum. "Layla, how's my girl? We need to talk about what happened today. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." Maya smiled, a real smile this time. She knew her mum was proud of her, even if they didn't always see eye to eye on everything. Layla had always been a source of strength for Maya, a constant reminder that she was worthy of love and respect, no matter what anyone else thought. Maya. Thanks, Mom, I'll be okay. But deep down, Maya knew that things were changing. Today, for the first time, she had taken a stand. She had shown Jason and everyone else that she wasn't just a quiet, passive girl waiting for someone to come to her rescue. She was more than that. She was strong, and she was going to prove it no matter how hard it got. Have you ever felt like you were expected to be someone you're not? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button to see what happens next in Maya's story. The next few days at school felt like an unspoken battle between Maya and the rest of the world. The hallway still buzzed with noise, the classrooms still filled with laughter, but it felt different now. Maya couldn't shake the feeling that things were shifting. Jason hadn't bothered her again, not directly, but she could feel the eyes on her, the whispers behind her back, the sidelong glances when she walked into a room. It was like they were all waiting for her to crack, to slip back into the shy, quiet girl they had all come to expect. But Maya wasn't that girl anymore. She was tired of being quiet. She was tired of feeling invisible, like her thoughts, her feelings, her entire existence didn't matter beyond the shadow of her father's fame. It was a strange feeling, this shift. She couldn't fully describe it, but it was there, deep inside. She was no longer willing to let the world decide who she was or what she could be. The thought stuck with her as she walked through the crowded halls that Thursday morning. Her mind was preoccupied with everything that had happened, everything that could happen next. As much as she wanted to avoid the drama, she knew it was inevitable. The kids at school weren't going to forget what Jason had done, and they were definitely not going to forget how she'd responded. She was already a target. Maya arrived at her locker, trying to block out the low murmurs around her. She opened it slowly, pulling out her books and trying to focus on the task at hand. The last thing she needed was to get involved in more drama. "Hey, Maya." The voice behind her made her freeze. She turned slowly, and there was Jason, standing there with his usual smirk. This time, though, he wasn't with his friends. He was alone. Maya's heart raced, but she forced herself to keep calm. She wasn't going to back down again. Not this time. "Got something to say?" Maya asked, her voice steady but cold. Jason seemed to hesitate, his cocky grin faltering just a little. "Look, I was an idiot the other day, okay?" He scratched the back of his neck awkwardly, and for a moment, Maya could have sworn. He looked almost vulnerable. Maya raised an eyebrow, not buying it for a second. "Yeah? So now you're sorry?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You think that makes it all better?" Jason looked like he wanted to say something, but instead, he just shrugged. "I don't know, maybe I went too far, but I was just trying to get a rise out of you. Didn't think you'd actually fight back." "Why do you do it?" Maya asked, her voice a little softer now, though she still couldn't bring herself to show him any sympathy. "Why do you always have to pick on people? What's the point?" Jason stared at her, his mouth opening as if he was about to say something, but then he just shut it again. He didn't know how to answer. Before he could say anything else, a bell rang, signaling the start of class. Without saying another word, Jason turned and walked off. Maya watched him go, her thoughts racing. She wasn't sure why he'd apologized, or if it was even a real apology. It didn't matter. She wasn't going to let it throw her off course. Maya wasn't going to allow anyone, not even Jason, to control how she felt about herself. But as she walked to her first class, Maya felt the tension in the air. Jason's apology wasn't the end of it, not by a long shot. It felt like the calm before the storm. She knew that something bigger was coming, something she couldn't avoid forever. At lunch, Maya sat at her usual spot, a few empty seats around her. She didn't mind the solitude. In fact, she preferred it. But today was different. She could feel the eyes of the other students on her, some glances full of curiosity, others full of judgment. Then, out of nowhere, a shadow loomed over her. She looked up to see Sarah standing there, her hands on her hips, a serious look on her face. "You know, you could sit with us today," Sarah said, her voice low but kind. Maya smiled faintly, shaking her head. It's fine. I don't need anyone to make a scene. Besides, I'm used to it. Sarah didn't seem convinced. Maya, you don't have to be alone all the time. You don't have to pretend you don't care what people think. I'm your friend. You can sit with us. Maya looked at Sarah, her heart warming a little. She knew Sarah meant well, but sitting with her friends, her real friends, felt like it would only invite more attention. More people talking behind her back. More whispers, more judgment. But Sarah wasn't going to let it go. We've got your back, Maya. You don't have to face all of this alone. I'm not going to let you just keep walking around like this, hiding away from everyone. Maya sighed, her shoulders slumping. I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want everyone talking about me. I just want to be me for once, you know? Sarah's expression softened. I get it. I really do. But Maya, you're not going to get through this alone. You have people who care about you. And honestly, I think it's time you let people see the real you. Maya hesitated, the weight of her friend's words hanging heavy in the air. For the first time in a long while, Maya felt the stirrings of something deep inside her, a desire to finally stand up for who she really was, to stop hiding in the shadows of everyone else's expectations. But could she? Was she ready to face the consequences of being herself? As she stared at Sarah, Maya realized that maybe, just maybe, it was time to find out. Have you ever struggled with living up to other people's expectations? What did you do to overcome it? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to see what happens next in Maya's journey. The next few days passed in a blur, and yet everything felt different. The usual routine at school felt suffocating, like a layer of pressure was building around Maya, and she was just waiting for it to burst. Every step she took seemed to carry the weight of others' eyes on her, waiting for her to crumble, to let them have the last laugh. But Maya wasn't the same girl she was before. She wasn't going to let herself fall back into silence. Not anymore. It was Friday, and Maya was standing at her locker, staring blankly at the combination, though she had already dialed it in a dozen times. Her mind was far away, somewhere between the desire to get through the rest of the day without drama and the growing realization that she couldn't just keep walking through the halls like nothing was happening. You all right, Maya? She turned, to see Sarah walking up beside her, a concerned look on her face. Sarah had been there for her through the last few days, trying to pull her out of her shell and reminding her that she didn't have to go through it alone. I don't know, Sarah, Maya said quietly, running her hand through her hair. I keep wondering when this is going to stop. When will they stop talking about me? I'm so tired of feeling like I'm in a zoo. Sarah's brow furrowed in understanding. I get it. People suck sometimes. But that's the thing, Maya. What they say or do, it's not who you are. They don't get to define you. Only you get to do that. Maya sighed, glancing over at the crowded hallway. It's not just about what they say. I can't escape it. My dad's name is everywhere. It's always in my face. No matter what I do, I can't get away from it. Sarah's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. But Maya, you're not your dad, and you shouldn't let what other people think of you control who you are. Maya looked at her, feeling a mix of frustration and relief. Maybe Sarah was right, but it was hard to just flip a switch. She had spent so many years hiding in the background, trying to fade into the walls, not wanting to be noticed. Now it felt like she couldn't escape the spotlight even if she tried. Just as the bell rang, signaling the start of class, Sarah gave her a small, reassuring smile. You've got this. Just remember, you're not alone in this, all right? Maya nodded, watching as Sarah disappeared into the crowd. She didn't know if she believed her friend completely, but she appreciated the encouragement. It felt nice to hear someone remind her that she didn't have to be so alone. The next few minutes of class passed by in a blur. Maya couldn't focus on what the teacher was saying, her thoughts racing with all the emotions from the last few days. All she could think about was what Jason had said in the hallway, how he'd apologized. It felt like there was something else going on, something deeper that she didn't fully understand. Then during lunch it happened. Maya was sitting alone again as usual when Jason appeared at her table. This time, though, there was no mocking grin on his face, no loud insults. He stood there awkwardly shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Look, Maya," Jason said, his voice surprisingly serious. "I know I've been a jerk. I didn't think about how much it hurt you, and I wanted to say I'm sorry." Maya looked up at him, unsure of what to say. Was this real? Was this some kind of trick to make her feel sorry for him? Jason seemed to sense her hesitation. "I know you probably don't believe me, but I was just trying to get attention. No, I wanted to be the guy who everyone laughed at, who was always in control. But seeing how you handled everything, standing up for yourself, not backing down, I guess it made me think." Maya said nothing for a moment, just staring at him. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Jason, apologizing. "I'm not asking you to be friends or anything," Jason continued, his voice quieter now. "But I just wanted you to know, I don't think you're just the Rock's daughter. I think you're your own person. And, maybe I was wrong about a lot of things." Maya felt a mix of emotions, confusion, disbelief, and a strange sense of empowerment. Part of her wanted to brush him off, tell him to get lost, but the other part of her felt like maybe this was a sign that things could be different. "Thanks, I guess," Maya said, her voice soft but steady. She wasn't sure if she'd forgiven him yet, but she was willing to acknowledge his words. Jason nodded and then walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Maya sat there for a long moment, letting everything sink in. The whole thing felt surreal. But one thing was for sure. Jason's apology wasn't the end of this story. It was just the beginning. That afternoon, Maya found herself standing in the gym, watching her classmates practice for the track meet. As she stretched her legs, she couldn't help but feel a flicker of hope inside her. Maybe it was because Jason had apologized, or maybe it was because she was finally starting to see herself the way Sarah and her mom saw her, as someone strong, someone worthy of respect. But whatever it was, Maya knew one thing for certain. She wasn't going to let the world define her anymore. As she took a deep breath, her mind flooded with thoughts of what came next. The battle wasn't over, far from it, but Maya was ready to show the world who she really was, ready to stand up, not just for herself, but for everyone who had ever felt like they didn't belong. And for the first time in a long time, she was ready to face whatever came next, head on. Have you ever had to face someone who treated you unfairly? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to follow Maya's journey as she takes on what's coming next. Maya couldn't sleep that night. Her mind was racing with all that had happened. The apology from Jason, the conversations with Sarah, the whispers from classmates. For once, she didn't feel like the quiet, invisible girl in the corner. But she also didn't feel fully at peace. Something still gnawed at her, a sense that there was more to the story than what she had seen so far. As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, she thought about what had driven Jason to finally come forward. Was it guilt? Was it fear of being ostracized? Maya didn't know, but what she did know was that his apology felt incomplete, like there was a bigger picture, and she was just starting to see the edges of it. The next day, when Maya walked into school, she couldn't shake that feeling. She had never been one to dig too deeply into things, to look for meaning in every glance or word, but today something felt off. There were more glances than usual, more whispers as she walked through the halls. The usual pack of students who had been eyeing her from a distance now seemed to be staring. Maya couldn't ignore it anymore. There was something happening, and she was at the center of it. At lunch, Maya found herself sitting by herself again. She wasn't complaining, but the silence felt oppressive. Everyone seemed to know something she didn't. She couldn't help but feel that all the recent events, the bullying, Jason's apology, the tension in the hallways, were connected in ways she hadn't fully understood. And then, as if on cue, Sarah walked into the cafeteria, her expression unreadable. She caught Maya's eye and made her way to the table. "Maya," Sarah said, her voice low, "I think you need to know something." Maya looked up, confused. "What do you mean? What's going on?" Sarah sat down next to her, glancing around before speaking. "It's about Jason and what he said." I don't think it's all true. Maya felt her heart skip a beat. What do you mean? He apologized. He said he was wrong. I know, Sarah continued, but I overheard something this morning. Some of the other guys in the hall, they were talking about you, and they mentioned Jason's apology, like it was all part of something bigger. Maya frowned. What? Do you mean bigger? Some of them are saying that Jason only apologized because he was under pressure, that it wasn't just about you. They said it had something to do with your dad. Maya's stomach dropped. What do you mean? What does my dad have to do with this? I don't know exactly, Sarah said, but they're saying that Jason and some of his friends, well, they thought it was funny to pick on you because they didn't know who you were. At first they thought you were just some random girl, but when they found out who your dad is, it's like it all changed. They said they were trying to test you, to see if you were tough enough to handle it. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She felt like the floor had fallen out from under her. They were bullying me because of my dad. Sarah nodded. I'm so sorry, Maya. I didn't want you to find out this way, but I think you need to know the truth. They thought if they could break you down, maybe it would make your dad look bad. Maybe it was a way of getting revenge for whatever reason. Maya sat there in shock. Jason had been cruel because he didn't know who she was, because of her father's fame. It felt like a punch to the gut, and the anger that she had been pushing down for weeks suddenly came rushing up. That's messed up, Maya said through clenched teeth, her voice trembling. They used me. They thought I was just a joke. Sarah reached over, placing a hand on Maya's arm. I know it's hard, but you need to understand something. You are so much more than your dad's name. You've got strength, Maya. You've got more than they'll ever realize. Maya took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Sarah's words helped, but the truth of the situation was still sinking in. Jason hadn't just been a jerk. He had been part of a game, a cruel little test to see how far they could push her. It made her feel like she had been nothing but a pawn in someone else's game, and the anger bubbled up again, sharper this time. For the first time since the incident began, Maya felt like she wasn't just going to take this lying down. She wasn't going to let them use her, anyone use her, any longer. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, but Maya didn't move. Her mind was reeling. She needed answers. She needed to know who exactly was behind this, and she needed to confront Jason about what she had just learned. Sarah, sensing the change in Maya's demeanor, gave her a small, worried smile. What are you going to do? Maya stood up, her resolve hardening. I'm going to find out exactly what's going on, and if Jason thinks he can mess with me just because of my last name, he's got another thing coming. The rest of the day felt like a blur. Maya went through the motions of class, her mind still racing with everything Sarah had said. The truth stung, and she couldn't let it slide. She was no longer the girl who would hide in the background and let people walk all over her. She had a plan. As soon as the final bell rang, Maya went straight to the gym where she knew Jason would be. He was part of the track team, and she figured it would be the best place to find him alone. She spotted him by the bleachers, surrounded by a few of his friends, laughing about something. Maya took a deep breath, pushing past her nerves. Jason, she called, her voice firm. He turned, his smile faltering when he saw the expression on her face. Maya, what's up? I need to talk to you, she said, walking up to him. She could feel the eyes of the other students on her now, and she didn't care. This was about more than just her and Jason. This was about standing up for herself once and for all. He looked uncomfortable, but he didn't try to walk away. All right, what's this about? Maya didn't waste time. I know why you were bullying me, and it's not because of anything I did, it's because of my dad. You thought you could mess with me, get some laughs, and it would make you feel good, but it didn't. Jason's face flushed, and for a moment he looked like he wanted to deny it. But then he just looked down, clearly avoiding her gaze. Maya, I wasn't thinking. It was stupid, okay? I get it now. But I didn't mean for it to go this far. Then why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning? Why didn't you just apologize for what you did? Maya's voice wavered, but she steadied herself. Why did you have to make it all about my dad? Jason opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked over at his friends who were watching nervously from a distance. He then turned back to Maya. his expression filled with something she hadn't expected: regret. "I'm sorry," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry I hurt you. You didn't deserve that." Maya's anger didn't disappear, but she finally felt like she had the closure she needed. Jason had done the right thing by apologizing, but there was still a lot of work to be done. She wasn't going to let him or anyone else define her again. "I'm not some game for you to play with," she said firmly. "And if you think you can get away with treating people like that just because of who they are, well, you're wrong." Jason nodded, finally meeting her eyes. "I get it, I do." Maya took a deep breath. "Good. Have you ever had to confront someone who wronged you? What did you do to take control of the situation? Share your experience in the comments. And make sure to subscribe to see how Maya handles the next challenge in her journey." Maya walked out of the gym with a sense of clarity she hadn't felt in weeks. Jason had apologized, truly apologized, but that didn't make everything okay. The damage was done and the whispers hadn't stopped. The hardest part wasn't hearing the apology, it was realizing how deeply ingrained the prejudices were against her, simply because of who her father was. And while she'd stood up to Jason, she knew the battle wasn't over. Not by a long shot. As she walked toward her locker, Maya could feel the weight of every stare. She was used to it by now, being the center of attention, but not in the way she wanted. Not because of who she was, but because of who people thought she was. Everyone knew her dad was the Rock, and it felt like the spotlight was on her 24/7. What Jason had said echoed in her mind. They thought it was funny to pick on you because they didn't know who you were. But when they found out who your dad is, she shook her head, refusing to let it drag her down. Maya had worked hard to make her way through life, and she wasn't going to let anyone, not even Jason, control her destiny. It was during sixth period that everything shifted. It wasn't just the whispers or the stares anymore, it was something bigger. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket and she fumbled to pull it out. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw the notification on the screen. It was from her mom. "Maya, your dad wants to talk to you. Call him when you get a chance." Her stomach dropped. Why would her dad want to talk to her now? Maya had always admired her father, loved him deeply, but he had been distant over the past few years. He was always busy with his movies, his brand, his career. But now she was suddenly being pulled back into his world, and it wasn't the way she had imagined. Maya stood up from her desk, heart pounding. She couldn't focus on the lesson anymore. She slipped out of the classroom, finding a quiet corner by the lockers to make the call. The phone rang twice before her dad picked up. "Maya," his deep voice boomed, filled with warmth and authority. "How's my girl?" "I'm good, Dad," she replied, trying to hide the nerves in her voice. "What's up? You said you wanted to talk?" "I did, yeah. I've been hearing some things. I've been hearing about what's been going on at school," he said, his tone more serious. And as Maya felt her heart race, "What exactly have you been hearing?" "I know you've been going through a rough time with some of the other kids, the bullying, the teasing. Look, baby, I'm sorry. I didn't realize how hard it was for you." Maya's grip on the phone tightened, and she took a deep breath. "Dad, it's not just about that. It's about how everyone treats me because of who I am. They don't even see me. They just see you. And it makes everything so much harder." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When he spoke again, his voice softened. "I know, I can't imagine how that must feel. But Maya, I want you to know something. You are so much more than my daughter. You've got your own life to live, your own voice. Don't let anyone tell you who you are. You define that." Maya swallowed hard. She had always known that her dad loved her, but hearing him say it, hearing him acknowledge how difficult it was, felt different. It felt like he finally saw her not just as his daughter, but as a person in her own right. "I know it's not easy," he continued, "but remember this. You're tough. You've got the strength to rise above this. And whatever happens, I'm proud of you. You've got this." Maya blinked back tears. "Thanks, Dad. I really needed to hear that. You always have me, Maya. Always." After they hung up, Maya felt a sense of calm wash over her. Her dad's words, his support, made everything feel a little more manageable. For the first time in days, she felt like she wasn't alone in this battle. The next morning, things at school seemed different. It was like there was a shift in the air. The whispers had died down, and though the stares were still there, Maya noticed that they weren't as pointed. They were softer, more curious, like people were starting to take notice of who she was, not just who her father was. Maya walked through the hallways, feeling a strange combination of strength and vulnerability. She knew there were still people who would try to bring her down, but she also knew she wasn't the same girl who had walked into this school months ago. She wasn't going to let the weight of other people's opinions define her anymore. That afternoon, Maya had a free period, so she decided to spend some time in the library. She had always loved reading, and right now, it felt like the only place where she could truly think without the constant buzz of the world around her. As she was browsing through the shelves, Sarah found her. "Maya, hey," Sarah said, coming over with a grin. "How's everything going?" Maya smiled, feeling lighter. "Actually, better than I expected. I think I'm starting to find my own rhythm." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "That's good to hear. I know you've been through a lot, but you've really been handling it like a pro. People are starting to see you, Maya. Not just the Rock's daughter, but you." Maya chuckled, though it was tinged with a sense of irony. "I don't know if I'm handling it like a pro, but I'm definitely learning. And honestly, I'm not going to keep letting people mess with me just because they think they can." "Exactly," Sarah exclaimed. "You're Maya, not just the daughter of some celebrity. You've got your own story to tell, your own life to live." Maya paused. For a moment, a thoughtful expression crossing her face. "Yeah, I think I've finally figured that out. I'm not just a side character in my dad's life. I'm the lead in my own story." And in that moment, something clicked inside Maya. She wasn't a passive player in her own life anymore. She wasn't going to let people dictate her worth, her identity. She was going to take control, and she was going to rise above it all. The bullying, the whispers, the stares, they didn't define her. She defined herself. Have you ever struggled with living up to someone else's expectations? How did you find your voice and stand up for yourself? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to follow Maya's journey as she continues to rise above. It had been a week since Maya had confronted Jason, and things at school were different. There was still tension in the air, but it was a different kind of tension now. The kind that made Maya feel like she was finally truly seen. People weren't just whispering about her father anymore. They were noticing her, Maya, the girl who was starting to rise above everything that had been thrown her way. The whole school seemed to be talking about the incident, not just Jason's apology, but the way Maya had handled it. Her courage had made a ripple, and she was starting to feel the effects. At first, she was uncertain, unsure if it would last. But as days passed, she began to realize something. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was thriving. Maya felt more confident than she had in a long time. She walked into school each morning with her head held high. She wasn't ignoring the looks or the whispers, but she wasn't letting them control her anymore. Instead, she was focusing on the people who treated her like a person, not a famous last name. One of those people was Sarah. They had been spending more time together, and Maya was grateful for her friend's support. Sarah was genuine, kind, and always ready to listen when Maya needed to talk. The two of them spent their lunch periods together, talking about everything and nothing. Sarah had even started to stick up for Maya when people tried to make comments or ask questions about her dad. It was a small act of rebellion, but it meant the world to Maya. But things weren't perfect. No matter how much Maya tried to move forward, there were still reminders of the past. Reminders of how quickly people could judge her without ever taking the time to understand who she really was. It happened in the middle of lunch one day. Maya had just sat down with Sarah at their usual table when a group of girls from the cheerleading squad walked by. Maya barely noticed them at first. She had learned to tune out the noise, but one of the girls, Brittany, made sure to get her attention. "Hey Maya," Brittany called, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I heard you had a little heart-to-heart with Jason the other day. How's that going? Did you get a big apology from him? Or was it just a pity party?" Maya clenched her jaw, but she refused to let Brittany's words get under her skin. Sarah, however, wasn't having it. She shot Brittany a look of disgust before standing up and walking over to her. "Brittany, why don't you mind your own business?" Sarah said, her voice sharp. You're seriously going to keep trying to bring her down when she's finally standing up for herself? The rest of Brittany's group stood silently, watching the interaction unfold. Brittany raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard by Sarah's defense of Maya. Oh, so now you're defending the Rock's daughter? Interesting. Maya stood up too, now feeling the weight of the moment. She turned to Brittany, her voice calm but firm. You know, Brittany, I didn't ask for any of this, she said, motioning toward herself, but I'm not going to let people like you make me feel less than I am. Not anymore. There was a tense silence in the air. The other girls shifted uncomfortably, glancing at each other. Brittany, however, was silent for a moment longer before she scoffed and rolled her eyes. Well, whatever. You're still just trying to live. In your dad's shadow, Brittany muttered before turning and walking off with her friends. Maya stood still, feeling a mix of frustration and relief. The confrontation was over, but it wasn't the end of the story. Brittany was still going to talk behind her back. There would always be people who couldn't let go of the idea of her being the Rock's daughter, and nothing more. But it didn't matter. What mattered was how Maya was going to respond. She wasn't going to let herself be defined by someone else's perception. The next day, Maya found herself walking into the school auditorium for an assembly. The principal, Mr. Parker, had announced that there would be a special guest speaker, and the entire school was buzzing with excitement. Maya wasn't sure who it was, but she figured it would be just another motivational speech from someone they'd never heard of. But when she walked in, she was stunned. Standing at the podium, microphone in hand, was none other than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, her father. Maya froze in the doorway. The entire auditorium went silent when they saw him. Her classmates, the teachers, everyone was watching him with wide eyes, mouths agape. He was larger than life on screen, and now here he was, in the flesh, and standing right in front of her daughter. Dwayne smiled and waved at the crowd, his presence instantly commanding attention. Maya's heart pounded in her chest. She wasn't sure how to feel. Part of her was elated to see him here, but another part of her felt nervous. The last thing she wanted was for everyone to see her as just the Rock's daughter. She had worked so hard to move beyond that, and now here he was, about to speak to the whole school. Dwayne's voice boomed through the microphone, his tone as warm and charismatic as ever. I know some of you may be surprised to see me here today, he said, giving a wink to the crowd, but I'm here because I'm proud to be a father, and I'm here to tell you all something important. Maya stood at the back, still processing what was happening. She hadn't expected this. Her father wasn't just visiting, he was speaking to the whole school. He continued, the most important thing I want to say to you all is that life is hard. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or who your family is. Everyone has their struggles, their battles, but what defines you is not the struggles themselves. It's how you rise from them. It's how you handle the challenges. It's about how you stay true to yourself. Maya felt a sense of pride wash over her. Her father was speaking to everyone, but it felt like he was speaking directly to her. The words resonated deeply. She had been fighting to stand on her own, to rise above the judgment and the labels, and here he was, reinforcing everything she had been learning. Dwayne continued, and for those of you who think you can get by on just a name, just a reputation, let me tell you something. Your name doesn't define you, you define yourself, and the way you treat others. How kind, how strong, how resilient you are, that's what truly matters. The applause was deafening as Dwayne finished his speech. Maya couldn't help but smile, her chest swelling with a sense of gratitude and pride. Her dad had just given an inspiring speech, and somehow it had made everything feel like it was falling into place. Later that afternoon, Maya found herself surrounded by friends and classmates, all still talking about the assembly. But this time the conversation was different. People were looking at her not with pity or judgment, but with respect. As she walked down the hallway with Sarah, Maya reflected on the speech. I think today was a turning point, Sarah said, her voice thoughtful. I can see people starting to understand you more. You're not just the Rock's daughter, you're Maya. Maya smiled, feeling the weight lift from her shoulders. Yeah, I'm Maya, and that's enough. What defines you? Have you ever struggled with living up to someone else's expectations? How did you find your own strength? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to follow Maya's journey. as she continues to rise above. Maya felt different now. The weight she had carried for so long, the feeling of being defined by everyone else's expectations was starting to fade. With each passing day, she became more sure of herself, more secure in who she was. She wasn't just Maya Johnson anymore. She was Maya. And that made all the difference. It had been 2 weeks since the assembly, and school life had shifted. The stares from classmates had become more neutral, less judgmental. The whispers were still there, but they no longer had the sting they once did. More importantly, Maya had earned respect, not because of her father, but because of her own strength. Still, there was one person who hadn't changed, Jason. While many had started to treat her with more respect, Jason's attitude remained the same. He hadn't said anything more since his apology, but there was a coldness to him, a subtle resentment that still lingered whenever their paths crossed. Maya knew he was still trying to recover his pride, and she could feel the tension whenever he was nearby. It came to a head one afternoon during lunch. Maya had just sat down with Sarah at their usual table when she noticed Jason walking toward her. His eyes were fixed on her, his posture stiff. She could feel her heart rate increase, her body instinctively bracing for whatever was about to happen. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Jason asked, his voice low and somewhat defensive. Maya raised an eyebrow, giving him a cool look. "I think we've already talked enough, Jason. What else is there to say?" He hesitated, his jaw clenching. "Listen, I know I was a jerk to you, and I know I owe you more than an apology, but I want you to know that I get it now. I understand that you're not just the Rock's daughter. You're your own person, and I was wrong for treating you like that." Maya studied him carefully, unsure of what to make of this new development. She had heard him apologize before, but this felt different. There was sincerity in his voice this time. "I appreciate the apology," she said slowly, "but it's not enough to change everything. You can't just take back what you said. People don't forget things like that." Jason nodded, as if he understood. "I get it. I'm not asking for you to forgive me overnight. I just wanted to say that I've been thinking a lot about it, and I realize I was just too focused on my own crap to see what I was doing. I'm sorry, Maya." For a moment, there was silence between them. Maya felt a mix of emotions swirling inside her. She wasn't sure if she could ever fully forgive him, but hearing him speak from the heart made her think. People were flawed. They made mistakes, but true growth came from owning up to those mistakes. "I'll think about it," Maya said finally, her voice steady. "But don't expect things to magically go back to the way they were. Trust has to be earned." Jason nodded again, his face softening. "Fair enough." He turned to leave, but before he did, he paused and looked back at her. "Good luck with everything, Maya. You've got a lot of strength. I can see that now." Maya watched him walk away, feeling a strange sense of closure. She wasn't sure what the future held for her and Jason, but it didn't matter. She had already moved past it, past the need for validation from others, even from him. She had already found herself. The next few days passed in a blur. Maya was finally beginning to settle into a sense of peace. But it wasn't long before another challenge presented itself. This time it wasn't from her classmates or Jason. It came from within. As the end of the school year approached, Maya began to feel the pressure of what was coming next. Graduation was just around the corner, and the thought of leaving behind the only life she had known filled her with uncertainty. She had spent so long fighting to be seen for who she truly was, but now she was facing a new challenge. Who was she going to be next? She walked through the school hallways one afternoon, lost in thought, when she was approached by the guidance counselor, Mrs. Fields. "Maya, I've been meaning to talk to you," Mrs. Fields said, her voice warm and welcoming. "I've noticed how much you've grown this year. You've really come into your own. I wanted to ask you, have you given any thought to what comes next after graduation?" Maya hesitated. She had been avoiding that question. College, her future, everything felt so uncertain. She had always assumed that she would follow in her father's footsteps in some way, that she'd end up in the public eye. But the more she thought about it, the less sure she was that it was what she wanted. "I'm still figuring it out," Maya admitted. I know I want to do something meaningful, but I'm not sure where to start." Mrs. Fields smiled knowingly. "Maya, you're in a unique position. You've got the world at your fingertips. But what I think is most important is that you take the time to really ask yourself what makes you happy. What's your passion? Don't let anyone else's expectations, even your father's, shape that. You've got to make that decision for yourself." Maya thought about her guidance counselor's words for the rest of the day. What did she want? What did she want out of life, outside of all the pressures, the fame, and the expectations? She realized that for the first time, in a long time, she didn't have to have it all figured out. She just needed to trust herself. That night, Maya sat in her room reflecting on everything that had happened over the past few months. The bullying, the drama, the fights, and the moments of clarity. She had been through so much, but she had learned one thing. She could face anything that came her way. She wasn't just Maya Johnson. She was Maya, a person with her own dreams, her own voice, and her own path to follow. And as much as the world tried to define her, it was her choice to decide who she was becoming, and that was enough. Have you ever faced a turning point in your life where you had to decide who you wanted to be, not based on other people's expectations, but your own? How did you find your path? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to see where Maya's journey takes her next. The days leading up to graduation were a whirlwind of emotions for Maya. There was excitement, anticipation, and a lingering sense of uncertainty. The thought of leaving high school behind was exhilarating, yet the reality of what came next loomed large. Maya had never been one to plan every detail of her life. Her journey had always been more about navigating the unexpected and trusting that things would work out. But now, with the world waiting for her on the other side of graduation, the unknown felt both exhilarating and terrifying. She spent a lot of time talking to Sarah during those last few days. The two of them had become closer than ever, their bond growing stronger with each passing week. Sarah had always been there for Maya, but now she was more than just a friend. She was a reminder of the strength Maya had within herself. "Are you excited for graduation?" Sarah asked one afternoon as they sat under a tree on the school lawn, the warm sun casting dappled shadows on the grass. "I don't know," Maya replied, fidgeting with the corner of her graduation cap. "I feel like I should be excited, but there's this nagging feeling like I'm not ready, like there's so much more to figure out." Sarah smiled knowingly. "It's normal. Everyone feels like that. Heck, I feel like that too, but you know what? I think you're more ready than you realize." Maya chuckled. "Thanks, Sarah. You always know how to make me feel better." "Hey, what are friends for?" Sarah grinned. "But seriously, Maya, you've been through so much this year. You've grown so much. I think you're stronger than you know." Maya nodded, but a part of her still felt uncertain. The next step was huge. College. A gap year. Traveling the world? She didn't have all the answers, and that was okay. She had learned the hard way that life didn't always go according to plan, but that didn't mean it couldn't be amazing. That evening, her dad, Dwayne, called her. It was a rare moment where he had time to sit down and talk, away from his busy schedule. Maya had been looking forward to the conversation. He'd been a distant figure in her life, not because he didn't care, but because his work always took him away. But he was a constant support, and their relationship had grown stronger over the past few months. "Hey, kiddo," Dwayne's voice boomed through the phone, warm and familiar. "Hey, Dad," Maya smiled. "How's everything going?" "Busy as always, you know how it is," Dwayne replied, his voice softening. "But I've been thinking about you a lot. Graduation is coming up, huh? I know this has been a crazy year for you." Maya leaned back in her chair, gazing out the window. "Yeah, it's been a lot, but I think I'm okay. I'm not sure what's next, though. I'm kind of freaking out about the future." Dwayne let out a low chuckle. "Hey, I've been there. It's normal to feel that way. When I was your age, I didn't know what the heck I was doing either. But the one thing I can tell you for sure is this: trust yourself. You've already proven that you're strong, that you can handle whatever life throws your way. So whatever comes next, I know you'll figure it out. Just take your time and make sure it's what you want." Maya felt a sense of calm wash over her at her father's words. He was right. She didn't have to have it all figured out right. Now, She just had to trust herself and take it one step at a time. The road ahead didn't need to be mapped out perfectly. It just needed to be walked. "Thanks, Dad," Maya said, her voice filled with gratitude. "I really needed to hear that." "You're welcome, kiddo. I'm proud of you, always have been. And no matter where you go, what you do, I'm always here for you." "I know," Maya said softly. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, Maya. More than you know." After hanging up, Maya felt a sense of peace settle over her. She wasn't sure what the future held, but for the first time she felt ready to face it. She had her family, her friends, and most importantly, herself. She didn't need anyone's approval to move forward. She just needed to trust the person she was becoming. The day of graduation arrived, and Maya found herself standing in the auditorium, waiting for the ceremony to begin. The excitement in the air was palpable, but Maya couldn't help but feel a little nervous. She had made it this far, but this was the moment that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. She stood in her cap and gown, surrounded by her classmates, all of them with their own dreams and fears about what was next. As the ceremony started, Maya glanced around at the familiar faces. Jason was there too, sitting a few rows ahead. He had kept his distance from her in recent days, but she could see the subtle nod of acknowledgement when he caught her eye. It wasn't a friendship, but it was progress. The speeches began, the names were called, and one by one students walked across the stage, their faces filled with a mixture of pride and relief. When Maya's name was called, her heart pounded in her chest. She stood, adjusting her cap, and walked to the stage. As she did, she felt the weight of everything she had been through this year, the bullying, the challenges, the victories. She had made it. And now she was stepping into the unknown, but with more confidence than she had ever had. When she reached the podium, she smiled at the crowd, her gaze briefly meeting her mom and dad in the audience. They were proud of her, and she could see it in their eyes. But Maya wasn't just proud for them. She was proud for herself, too. The ceremony ended, and Maya joined her friends outside, where the warm evening sun cast a golden glow over everything. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment settle on her shoulders. Graduation was over, but life was just beginning. She turned to Sarah, who was grinning from ear to ear. "We made it," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. "We did," Maya replied, her voice steady and sure. "And now it's time for the next adventure." As they stood there, surrounded by friends, family, and a world of possibilities, Maya knew that whatever came next, she was ready. She had already faced so much, and she was still standing. She had her whole life ahead of her, and it was hers to shape. Her story wasn't defined by who her father was or by the struggles she had faced. It was defined by how she had risen above it all. Maya Johnson was not just the daughter of a famous celebrity. She was a young woman who had found her voice and her strength, and that was just the beginning. What's the next big step in your life that you're unsure about? Have you ever felt like you were stepping into the unknown? Share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more of Maya's journey as she continues to discover who she truly is. The weeks following graduation felt like a blur. Maya's mind was filled with a constant swirl of emotions, excitement, uncertainty, and a deep sense of freedom. The summer stretched out before her like a blank canvas, ready for her to paint the future however she saw fit. Yet even with the world at her feet, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more she needed to do before stepping fully into adulthood. As the days passed, Maya found herself revisiting the advice her dad had given her. Trust yourself. He had reminded her to take her time, to explore what made her happy, and to be true to herself. But what did that really mean? What was her passion? What did she truly want from life? Maya had always known she wanted to make a difference in the world, but beyond that, everything felt unclear. She didn't want to follow in her father's footsteps in the exact way everyone expected, but she also couldn't ignore the platform he had provided her. Maya had the opportunity to use her voice in a way that could inspire and help others. The question was, how? One afternoon, as Maya sat in the living room flipping through some college brochures, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Sarah. "Lunch tomorrow, let's talk about our futures." Maya smiled. As always, Sarah seemed to have an uncanny ability to show up at just the right time. Maya knew Sarah was going through the same whirlwind of emotions, and they had always been there for each other, no matter what. It felt good to have someone who understood her struggles and dreams. The next day they met at their favorite cafe, a cozy little spot with mismatched furniture and a quiet atmosphere. Maya had always loved coming here. The place felt like a haven from the chaos of the outside world. "So," Sarah began, sipping her iced coffee, "what's the plan? Are you heading to college, taking a gap year, running away to Paris?" Maya chuckled. "I wish I could just escape to Paris, but no, I'm not sure what I want yet. I'm feeling the pressure to pick something, but honestly, I don't know where to start." Sarah nodded, her expression thoughtful. "I get it. The pressure is real, but you don't have to have it all figured out right now. What matters is that you're doing something that feels true to you, and I think that's what's been missing from all of this. Your truth." Maya tilted her head, considering Sarah's words. "My truth?" "Yeah," Sarah said with a smile. "You've spent so much time trying to prove something to everyone else, to show them who you really are. But what if you didn't have to prove anything? What if you just lived your truth, whatever that looks like?" Maya's heart skipped a beat. It was simple yet profound. For so long she had been navigating life based on what others thought, trying to meet expectations that were never truly hers. But Sarah was right. What if the only person she needed to prove anything to was herself? "I think I get it," Maya said slowly, a new sense of clarity settling in her mind. "Maybe I've been trying to live up to everyone else's expectations for so long that I forgot what I actually want." "And what do you want, Maya?" Sarah asked, her eyes bright with curiosity. Maya thought about it for a moment. The weight of her decision suddenly feeling a little lighter. "I want to help people. I want to use my voice not to be famous, but to make a real difference. I want to empower others who feel like they don't belong, like I did. I want to create something that matters, something that doesn't have anything to do with my dad's legacy, but everything to do with my own." Sarah smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "That's it, Maya. That's your truth." Maya felt a surge of excitement rush through her. It was as if a weight had been lifted from her shoulders. For the first time in a long time, she felt sure of herself. She didn't need to have all the answers, but she now knew the direction she wanted to go. She wasn't going to follow a predetermined path. She was going to create her own. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of decision-making. Maya researched different ways to get involved in causes that mattered to her. Mental health awareness, empowering young girls, promoting diversity and inclusion. She reached out to organizations that aligned with her values, offering her time, energy, and passion. It was overwhelming at times, but in the best way. For the first time, Maya felt like she was walking her own path, not someone else's. She also started considering her education options. College was still an option, but it wasn't the only option. She wanted to explore the world, to gain experiences that would shape her in ways that textbooks couldn't. She considered taking a gap year to travel, volunteer, and immerse herself in different cultures. She knew she had the privilege and resources to do so, and it felt like the right choice. One evening, Maya sat down with her parents to discuss her plans. Her dad was still busy with his career, but he always made time when it counted. "So what's next for you?" Dwayne asked, a curious smile on his face. "I think I'm going to take a gap year," Maya said, her voice steady. "I want to travel, get involved with causes that matter to me, and really figure out what I want to do with my life. College is still on the table, but I don't want to rush into it just because it's expected." Her mother, who had been quiet up until then, nodded thoughtfully. "I'm proud of you, Maya. You're really taking the time to figure out who you want to be. That's not an easy thing to do, especially with everything you've been through." Dwayne placed a hand on her shoulder. "Your mum's right. You've got a big heart, Maya. And I know that whatever you choose to do, it's going to be something great. You've always had the strength to make your own decisions. Don't let anyone else tell you what your future should look like." Maya smiled, feeling a warmth in her chest. She had their support, but more importantly, she had her own support. She was finally ready to take the next step, not because it was expected, but because it was what felt right for her. The road ahead was uncertain, But for the first time, Maya wasn't afraid of it. She wasn't afraid of who she was becoming, or where life would take her. She had discovered something important along the way, that life wasn't about waiting for things to happen to her. It was about making things happen. It was about choosing her own path, carving out her own space, and trusting herself to walk it with confidence. As Maya walked out into the world, she knew that her journey had just begun, and whatever came next, she was ready for it. What about you? Have you ever made a decision to follow your own truth even when it wasn't what others expected? How did you find the courage to take that leap? Share your story with us in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more of Maya's journey as she continues to find her place in the world.